words said in the aftermath are just too confusing. Now I spend my days watching you throw stones at someone who's already dead. And if this is the way we all begin, so how can I ask for any more?
Welcome to episode 20 of the Stages of Minnesota. 20. 20. There was something about the number 20 that I wanted to say to you. What was it? Oh yeah, November 20th is Minnesota Give to the Max Day. We'll put a link to the Give MN website in the show notes. What I want desperately for you to do is to go there on Thursday, November 20th, and search for your favorite theater company. When you find it, donate $75 or $7 or $700, whatever you can afford to give. I know with the holidays coming up, it's hard to earmark money for things outside of your family and loved ones. But we all love theater, right? So they're kind of like our loved ones too. How about giving a donation in someone's name instead of a gift this season? What about Uncle Seth from up Mega Way? Why not give him the gift that will make you feel great and leave him seething? Can you imagine the look on his face on Christmas morning when he opens a card from you that says that instead of a gift, you've donated $100 in his name to Threshold Theater to help them achieve their mission to produce fresh LGBTQ plus work? Priceless. Here's another idea. I know many of you were planning to get the old Stages of Minnesota Christmas gift. Instead, donate to one of the theater companies that have sponsored the Stages of Minnesota over the first 20 episodes. I'll list all of those theater companies in the show notes. It would be the best gift ever if you could reward those folks who have shown their support for this show. But hey, there are so many great theater companies out there that could really use our help this year. So whoever your favorite is, promise me that each one of you will go and donate at least $5 to a theater company that has brought you joy this year. Once you donate, send me an email. Tell me you donated to a theater. You don't have to say how much or even which theater, and I'll share the names of theater supporters either in a post or, if I get more than 4 of you to email me, perhaps on the show. I know you all aren't good at interacting. I have a hard time giving tickets away to you. Listen, if you were going to donate anyway, if you donate to a theater for any reason, let me know about it. It will only take 5 seconds to email me at robdunkelberger@thestagesofmn.com. Okay, enough about that. This week, we're making up for no interview last week with a really special one. Fresh off of her scene-stealing turn as Rizzo in Grease out at Chanhassen Dinner Theaters, we have Anna Hashizume, who is starring as Eliza Doolittle in Theater La Ti Da's new production of My Fair Lady. Hashizume is a rising talent in the Twin Cities theater scene, and I really enjoyed getting a chance to chat with her about her career and My Fair Lady. Later in the show, we have a review of Frank Theater's latest political hot ticket, The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui. But before we get to those, a big congratulations to the Stages of Minnesota +1 club member, Kat Schwartz, whose name was drawn earlier this month for a pair of tickets to a show at the History Theater. Kat, I hear great things about Rollicking, a Winter Carnival musical, and I've seen Whoosh twice, once at the Minnesota Fringe Festival, and then the next year at a remount at the Mill City Museum. So I would highly recommend choosing either of those. But honestly, their entire season looks great, so I don't think you can choose wrong. Thanks again to our friend Erica Scarlett of Lettered in Theater and to the History Theater, where they bring history to life through the power of theater, for donating those tickets. Now, here's my chat with Anna Hashizume, which I hope you'll find as loverly as I did. Joining me today is the brilliant and endlessly talented Anna Hashizume, who's about to step into one of musical theater's most iconic roles, Eliza Doolittle, in My Fair Lady at Theater La Ti Da. Anna, welcome to the Stages of Minnesota.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we get to Eliza, let's set the stage a little. When did you first realize you wanted to pursue a life as a performer?
Probably at a really young age. I was probably about like 8 or so when I discovered theater and discovered performing, and I kind of never looked back.
Who are your artistic inspirations? The people who made you say, I want to do that.
When I was in high school, I discovered Audra McDonald. She has definitely been an inspiration to me for the majority of my career and my life.
What was your route to becoming a professional performer?
My first show ever was with Theater Moo, and that was about when I was 8 years old. I think I have a unique experience as an Asian American actor. I never thought that this wasn't something I could pursue. The first show I ever did was with a majority Asian American cast. It was just always something that felt like, oh yeah, like a lot of Asian people do this, clearly, because this is my first experience with it. Then I got into high school, and that's when I really discovered music and singing and classical music and classical singing. Throughout high school, I was a little unsure if I wanted to go the classical music route. That's kind of what I was studying. But I was doing musicals like at my high school. So I was kind of torn, not sure what I wanted to do. I decided to go into school for vocal performance. So I kind of have a unique degree. I have a Bachelor of Science in vocal performance with an outside field of theater. So I was able to take some theater classes, which was really helpful for me, but I was really heavily pursuing opera at that time. And after I graduated, I went to grad school for opera, and I was continuing to study classically. After receiving my master's, I was auditioning for young artist programs, which is kind of like the next step in an opera singer's life. You go to undergrad, you go to graduate school, then you pursue these young artist programs. And I did a young artist program at Fargo Moorhead Opera, and I loved it. But then I started wanting to audition for musical theater. I started getting a little disillusioned in terms of like the opera industry. I love opera. I love classical music. The industry wasn't fitting me and who I wanted to be as a performer. So I started auditioning for musical theater. The short version of how I now ended up doing musical theater instead of opera.
So I grew up in Fargo and went to college at MSU in Moorhead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I often wonder how much they'd have to pay me to live there as an adult. I think the number is mind-numbingly high.
That's fair.
You went there voluntarily, which begs the question, why?
Well, I, needed a job. I really wanted to do a young artist program, and it was one of the only young artist programs that I got into. It was February. It was like February, March, April, or something like that. I was there for 3 months, around the worst time of the year to be in Fargo. But it was a great program. At the time, the company was run by David Hamilton, who is just a fantastic human. I've been back once to do an opera as a principal, not as a young artist, as a principal. And that was in the fall, so it was a little nicer. But that was one of the best operatic experiences I've ever had. But it was probably like my last real legit opera that I will maybe ever do in my life. And it was one of the best experiences, one of the best performing experiences I've ever had. So shout out to Fargo Moorhead Opera. Terrible place to be in the cold, but great opera company.
You've done both classical opera and musical theater. Is a role, or do you approach and prepare for them in different ways given the form?
A role is a role in terms of like thinking of character, in my opinion, in terms of thinking of character. But prep is very different in terms of just how you go into day one. When you do an opera, the unspoken rule is you have to know all of your music day one. So you do all of your prep musically, with text, with everything, with language, whatever you need to do to get to day one of rehearsal, and you run through the entire opera. So that's very different than, sometimes you get your script on day one, unless you request it earlier, right? So it's a very different process. You learn your music in musical theater. You learn your music for pretty much that whole first week of rehearsal, or at least the first 2 or 3 days is like music rehearsal. So the process in that way is really different. But I think the process of how I approach the character and how I approach like thinking about the character is the same for both.
I last saw you on stage as Rizzo at Grease,
Mhm.
out at Chanhassen Dinner Theaters. You were fantastic in that. You stole every scene you were in.
Thank
Um,
you.
that show opened under very sad circumstances, though,
Yes,
when
yes.
artistic director of Chanhassen Dinner Theaters and the director of the show, Michael Brindisi, passed away suddenly, just days before the show opened. From the audience on opening night, we went in feeling sad, a little sad, but by the end, it felt like a celebration of Michael's life and work. How was it for you guys up on the stage?
A really challenging experience. An experience I hope to never repeat in my life. I can't speak to everyone, who was there, particularly because that was my first show at the Chanhassen Dinner Theaters. There were people in that cast who had been working with Michael for like 20 years. My experience was clearly very different than their experience. I knew Michael Brindisi for about a month, and the fact that someone could make as big of an impact on me as a performer in a month, and that rehearsal process and that role and that opportunity really came at a time when I was needing it. I had gone through a lot of rejection, and I was feeling like I needed a win, So when I booked it, it was really exciting. Um, and throughout the process, he never withheld how grateful he was to be in the room, to be with those people, to be creating that. And also personally to me, how grateful he was that I was a part of the project. What was so wonderful about working with Michael was he never hesitated to express how grateful he was that I was there and how much trust he had in me as a performer. And I think at that time, I really needed to hear that. And it made a big impact on my life that he believed in me so much. It's definitely shaped now going into a new process, just like my confidence level as a performer. And that's really because of a big part because of him, which is really special to be able to say.
Yeah, it's a big loss, and those of us who didn't get to know him well still feel that loss.
Yeah.
He made quite a mark on a lot of people over a long period of time. But even if you were in his orbit for just a short time,
Mhm.
you felt it. You felt it.
Yes,
He was a
absolutely.
okay. On a happier notes, hopefully. Uh, My Fair Lady, which is a musical adaptation of George Bernard Shaw's 1912 play Pygmalion. How do you view the gender dynamics and class distinctions in My Fair Lady from a contemporary lens? Is this something you discussed in rehearsal, and how does this production deal with the issues of female agency?
This musical really sheds a light on these gender dynamics. I don't think musicals always need to have an answer to these big questions. I think it's important for a lot of works of art to set forth or propose something or to share something and say, take a look at this. And what do you think about it as the audience?
Sure.
So when we talk about gender dynamics and class distinction in this musical, I don't think it's necessarily like, I think the book itself is not necessarily making a huge statement of being like,
This is how it should
Higgins,
be. It's
yeah,
not
like
trying to
Higgins
say
is
that.
treating Eliza like, whatever. I think it's more setting forth like, look at how this one person is treating this other person, and look at how this other person is responding to it. And like, how does that make you feel? what does that do to you? And I always think a good piece of art sometimes leaves you with more questions rather than answers.
Sure.
And I'm not saying My Fair Lady and our production of My Fair Lady is maybe doing that, but people are going to see this and see the dynamics. And, each iteration of My Fair Lady, each time it's performed, our modern lens is going to filter how we see this work and is going to change how we interact with it. And I think now in 2025, it's very different than even what it would have been in 2015, right? And I think we see it differently, and we get to play within that modern lens a little bit. For us, it's a lot about language and the idea of code switching, right? Especially John Michael Reese, who's playing Higgins, is Black. I'm Asian. We've both in our lives have had to code switch for various reasons, for survival, etc. And what happens when someone is trying to maybe help someone, but is doing it in a way that they were taught, which is maybe toxic and not, it's like they're trying to help, but they don't know how. And when does that cycle break? Does that make sense? Am I being clear at all?
Yep. Nope. I
Okay,
understand.
fabulous.
Yes. So your role of Eliza, it seems to me, is one of the more challenging lead roles in musical theater. There's a lot technically going on with accents and elocution. Have you found it to be a demanding role?
Yeah, I mean, a 3 hour long musical is nothing to sneeze at.
Right.
So the sheer just like volume of material is tricky. Accent, I would say the Cockney was more challenging than I was expecting and anticipating as I was kind of like prepping for this and getting into this. I was like, wow, I have a lot to learn about the Cockney. The RP was a little bit easier for me. But I would say the other tricky thing that I feel like everyone really focuses on the dialect, which is challenging, absolutely. But I think something else that can be a bit tricky is the singing and the style of singing. She does not live in one world when it comes to the style and the approach vocally that you have to take to all of her music. And of course, this is like where my mind goes to as a trained singer, a classically trained singer, as a voice teacher, as someone who really works with the voice a lot. I think a lot of people look at Eliza and go, oh, she's like a legit soprano. She needs that. But there's a lot of like mixy, almost very musical theater-esque sounds that she makes as well. And so if you have someone who's just in that classical realm, that other stuff is maybe not going to be as strong, and vice versa, right? So the thing that's challenging for me is the vocal pacing throughout the show, because it's like she goes from these really high soaring notes into something that's a little bit more gritty. And how do you flow through that? And how does that help tell the story as well? Which is really fascinating to me and has been a challenge.
So what's your take on Eliza? How do you see her journey, and what do you hope audiences notice about her through your performance?
Eliza's story is more about self-actualization. I don't think it's so much of like she starts off as like a meek, like unsure character, and then like grows into this really strong, self-possessed woman. I think it's more she's always been a strong, self-possessed woman, and it's needing someone else's approval. It's more about her realizing for herself that like she has it all, and like doesn't need the approval of society, of men, of whatever. But like she's come into herself. That's really how I see her journey.
Do you have any favorite moments, favorite song in the show, one that either you perform or that you just like to listen to when it comes up in rehearsal?
We have our first preview today, so I'm a little in the weeds of like just tracking the whole show. So I would say I'm not in a place where I can like sit and like relax and like listen to moments as much as I would like. That being said, I really, of course, I enjoy singing. I could have danced all night. It's so nice to sing it. It just like feels really lovely and it just feels good. I have a lot of scenes with John Michael Reese, and he is just an amazing scene partner. It's so much fun. We work really similarly. We have like a very similar style of working and style of playing and style of discovering. So, what's been really fun throughout this rehearsal process is to play with one another, and to discover together like how we move throughout a scene, both like emotionally and physically. And that has been just like a real highlight. It's been really fun. Actually, I mean, the entire company is like top notch. It is incredible what this like group of, I don't even know, 10, 12 people have been able to accomplish, because a lot of people are playing like multiple roles, are doing multiple things, are doing like, I mean, it's just chaos backstage. But yeah, some of the highlights are definitely, a lot of the music is just gorgeous and the company is amazing.
It stood the test of time for a reason. It's got some
Absolutely.
great songs in it. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about a career in the performing arts, what would it be?
One thing I would say would be to not feel like you have to push so hard. Um, I'm a I'm a worker. I'm like a um when I want something, I like really, really chase after it. And I'm like a very much like a go-getter. And I love that about myself. I think it, has made me successful in the ways I want to be successful and how I measure success and whatever. But I would also say like it's okay to like take a step back and like allow things to happen rather than push for things to happen so much. Because I don't have any regrets. I would not change anything that I've done, because I'm really happy with where I'm at. But yeah, I would maybe say that like I could like take a step back and like enjoy where you are right now rather than
Right.
continually pushing, and hoping for the future, because like right now is right now and right now is beautiful.
Sure. What's next for Anna?
I'm going to be doing a show with my dear, dear friend, Bradley Greenwald, at Open Eye Theater, kind of like what, March? But it's the Berryman musical. So it's me and Bradley, and then a puppeteer, who's like puppeting another character. No rest for the wicked. We open My Fair Lady on Saturday, and I have some workshop time with this new piece, next week. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I haven't done a new work in a while, and so that will be exciting. And I love Bradley Greenwald, and
Yeah.
he's a great person to work with. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a wild ride. I play like Bradley's wife and also his mom. So, stay tuned. It'll be a
Right.
great time.
Anna, thank you so much for joining me. I
Thank you.
cannot wait to see your Eliza on stage. My Fair Lady runs at Theater La Ti Da through December 28th. We'll link to the theater's website in the show notes, as we always do, so you can purchase tickets. For anyone out there practicing their Cockney, remember, it's all fun and games until your friends start calling you, "Hello, governor." So, you know, make sure you know who's around, because that's the sort of thing you could never live down.
Exactly. Good,
Okay.
wise words right there.
Great. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Whether it moves me to cheers or tears, puts me to sleep or gets me up on my feet, these are my Minnesota Honest Reviews. Truthful, but not hurtful. The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui is a 2.5-hour play written in 1941 by Bertolt Brecht, using Chicago gangsters to satirize the rise of Nazism. That description might sound like heavy, heady stuff, perfect for a Sunday matinee nap. But this production is anything but sleepy. It's sharp, funny, and completely engaging. The play follows Arturo Ui, a mobster who rises to power by taking over the cauliflower racket, an absurd yet frighteningly recognizable allegory for Hitler's rise. Brecht's signature epic theater style keeps the audience aware they're watching a play. Actors break the fourth wall, the makeup is stylized, a hint of kabuki, and the tone walks a tightrope between noir and comic book. The cast is stellar. David Bukema opens the show as the announcer, giving us a wryly humorous introduction to the cast of characters. Jim Ramlett gives a sympathetic turn as a politician drawn into corruption, and E.J. Subkovayak oozes something, a combination of charisma and menace, as Ui's right-hand man, Ernesto Roma. But the show belongs to Gary Briggle as Arturo Ui, a commanding, darkly funny performance that recalls two 1990 Al Pacino performances, The Godfather Part 3's Michael Corleone crossed with Dick Tracy's Big Boy Caprice. He's magnetic, menacing, and impossible to look away from. Director Wendy Knox and the Frank Theater team deliver a production that feels both timeless and alarmingly relevant. Yes, it's Brecht, and yes, it's 2.5 hours. But it's a fast, funny, and disturbingly entertaining ride through power, corruption, and cauliflower. The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui runs through November 23rd at the Ivy Building for the Arts in South Minneapolis. We'll link to the theater's website in the show notes. That will do it for this week. I'm sorry there's no At a Show With segment this week, but I've got a full schedule coming up, and we'll get another round of photos up in an episode soon. Don't forget to give to the max on November 20th. And when you do, send me an email letting me know that you donated. You can send those to me at robdunkelberger@thestagesofmn.com. Theaters. It's nearly too late to get in on the sponsored holiday preview episode, which will be our next release. But if you're quick and I can make it work, I'll try to add you. If you're interested in getting in the episode, email me there soon. Or if you want to sponsor an upcoming episode on your own, please reach out. Your support means more than you can know. Speaking of emailing, if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, or prophecies you'd like to share with me, feel free to email me. We are always accepting new members in the Stages of Minnesota +1 Club. This isn't a joke. Send me an email with your name and mobile number. When I have a +1 ticket available, I'll text the +1 Club members. And if you can make it, text me back directly. No group text replies. The first person to reply gets to see a show for free with me. I want to thank Anna Hashizume for joining me on the show today. Don't forget to check her out as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady at Theater La Ti Da now through December 28th. We'll link to Theater La Ti Da's website in the show notes, as well as to Frank Theater, so you can easily book tickets to both those shows that we talked about today. You can read my full reviews of all the shows I see on my blog at thestagesofmn.com. Remember, if you see me out at a show or anywhere, don't be shy, say hi. Let's get a photo together because I really love doing that and put you on the Stages of Minnesota. Thanks as always to Ryan Lee for the generous use of his music. Every note of music used on the Stages of Minnesota comes from his albums, which you can find at ryanlee.bandcamp.com. Whether you're watching the YouTube edition or listening to the podcast version, please help spread the word. Because if you tell two friends, and they each tell two friends, and so on and so forth, imagine how much will get donated on Give to the Max Day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and review the show. Until next week, as Carol Jackson declared on her tax returns, I gave to the max.
'Cause it's all over but the shouting. Every soul needs light, but mine's been wasting away in the afternoon shade. out of sight. And I am not the pure and perfect one, but my branches are still bent toward the sun.